To get in the game, number one action step is internally commit to doing it. Commit to being a success in real estate, whatever that means to you. And if you are committed to it, I guarantee you can figure out how to overcome any obstacle. And then I would just start talking to people, as simple as it is. Tell people, share with them what you're looking to do, give them the opportunity to hear how they could be a lender in your business, and just start having those conversations. If you're there to serve other people, take an interest in them, you'll very quickly realize that they are desiring exactly what we can offer with our real estate deals. And I think you'll be amazed at just how easy it is to raise private money once you start that process.
If you're a real estate investor and are wondering how to raise and leverage private money to make more profit on every deal, then you're in the right place. On Raising Private Money, we'll speak with new and seasoned investors to dissect their deals and extract the best tips and strategies to help you get the money, because the money comes first. Now here's your host, Jay Conner.
Ask you something. What would you do if tomorrow your job vanished? What would you do if your income dried up and all you had was a borrowed car, a house you couldn't even afford, and bills stacking up fast? Most people would panic. But today's guest, he built a real estate empire from zero, literally no bank financing, no money, nothing but grit and strategy. Well, my guest, his name is Chad Harris, and after getting blindsided by a family health crisis that forced him to leave his overseas job in Kenya, he came back to the States stone cold broke, and then turned around and raised over $3 million in private money to build his real estate portfolio. 50 rental properties, all without a single bank loan. Now, this isn't theory. This is execution. Ted's going to break down in the show here exactly how he did it, what he said, who he talked to, how he structured the deals, and how you can use the same steps to raise private money and start stacking assets fast. Now, look, if you're looking to try to get your first deal or scale up or finally stop begging banks for funding, this is the episode for you. Well, welcome to Raising Private Money Show, the only podcast for real estate investors who want to fund their deals without relying on banks or credit or using their own cash. I'm Jay Conner, the Private Money Authority, and I'll show you how to get private lenders lined up begging to fund your next deal, because every good deal starts with the money. In just a moment, you're going to meet my friend and guest, Chad Harris, right after this. Well, hello there, Chad. It's great to see you again since being at our most recent mastermind meeting. How are you?
I'm doing well. Good to see you, Jay. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I'm excited. But look, let's dive in. First of all, I want you to take us back to the moment that you realized your job was gone, the bills were real. What was going on through your mind, and what was your first move?
Yeah, it's not a pretty moment, in all honesty. Not a lot of fun to go back there, but yeah, the moment was I was in a hospital room. My youngest son had been born recently, and he had all kinds of health issues, and he ended up having to have a breathing machine, and which meant, I mean, obviously I was worried about him and his health. But also that meant that I couldn't return to my job overseas, and he couldn't fly or live in our remote setting where we were living over there. And so it was in that moment that I just decided, I committed that I was going to be a full-time real estate investor, that I had always lived and was focused on ministry and giving back to others. And I kind of realized in that moment that I wasn't really providing enough for my family. I had bills mounting from medical issues. I had no house for us to live in. We just had a house provided by one of our supporting churches. I had no vehicle. We'd been living overseas for 4 years. And it was one of those rock bottom moments where I need to provide for my family and whatever that takes to do that. And so, what did I do? Um, I didn't know how to invest in real estate, really. I'd been listening to some podcasts and I had no money to invest in real estate, but I was committed to the process. I just felt like if I committed to it, I could figure out a way. And so I went out and I started telling people, hey, I'm going to buy property, I'm going to buy rentals, I'm buying houses. And I was telling them, but in actuality, I was more casting a vision for myself, trying to convince myself that I could do it. And in the process, the interesting thing that I found was over and over, as I was telling them what I was going to do, they would respond in similar ways. So I would continually hear people respond with, oh, I always wanted to do that. I just never pulled the trigger. Rentals are a great investment. I just never figured out how to do it. Um, I wish I could invest in rentals. I wish I could buy houses. Or, of course, oh, I love those shows on HGTV. The numbers are so amazing. And I realized there was an opportunity there where I could help them do what they really want, get involved in real estate, but in a new way. I could help them get involved in real estate by being a lender in my business. And so that's how I got into real estate. I became a full-time buy and hold investor by raising money and buying foreclosures at the time. This was 2013. Buying foreclosures and fixing them up and doing the BRRRR strategy, except I raised the money on the front end, short-term money from private lenders, and then I refinanced with other private lenders that were long-term lenders. And so I did the BRRRR strategy just with private money on both ends.
So just to
And
make sure everybody in our audience understands what the BRRRR method is, what does the BRRRR method stand for?
yeah, I was doing it before there was an acronym and a book and all of that. Yeah, so the BRRRR strategy is an acronym for buy a property, rehab a property and increase that value, rent the property, refinance the property so that you get all of your money back for the next deal, and then repeat the process over and over again. So,
Exactly. Now, you raised over $3 million in private money without using banks. And here's the question, I like, how did you even know where to start?
good question. Yeah, that is a good question. I'm grateful that I learned how to raise private money in ministry. So, going into ministry overseas in Kenya, I had to raise the money for that ministry. And so I was familiar with the process of just raising money and how to talk to people about money. And so it ended up being a very easy transition going into raising money for real estate. It was the same conversations. It was just the opportunity that I was presenting was a little bit different, and the impact for them was a little bit different. But yeah, that's how I was familiar with it.
Well, that certainly makes sense. You came um, from not an industry, but you came from the ministry, raising private money. So you were already comfortable talking with other people about investing their money and, what would be in it for them. So that wasn't brand new to you. So you were already familiar with having conversations about raising private money from other people. So even though you had that experience, what exactly did you say to people, potential private lenders, when you were first talking with them about investing with you or loaning private money to you?
Yeah. So those initial conversations, and just to equate it to ministry, because it really was the same discussion I was having right? In ministry, I was talking to people who wished they could be involved in a ministry overseas, and I was giving them that opportunity to suddenly be very involved financially in a ministry overseas. And I would talk about the impact that it would have for them in Kenya and also for them. And so it was the same discussion with private lenders, especially early on. I was talking to people who wished they could be in real estate, but it was overwhelming or intimidating, or for whatever reason, they never actually did it, which is actually pretty common. You know, a lot of people want to be in real estate, but don't end up actually doing it. And I was having that conversation and giving them the opportunity where they can very simply be in a real estate business as a lender. They don't have the risk of worrying about tenants or how to collect rent or any of those things with the management. They would just get their interest payment every month like the bank. And the impact for them, of the impact in the community, they're making the houses better, they're providing housing for great families, and they're getting a good return on their money, right? That those were the two things that I focused on, which is what they were looking for: an opportunity to get into real estate and a way to get a good return on their money without risk or headaches.
That certainly makes sense. Now, as we've been talking, you came from the world of talking with people about investing money for a different reason, but you may not be able to relate to it directly, but you've been doing this so long, I'm sure you've got some advice. And that is, what advice would you give to someone who's never raised private money before? Like, what kind of mindset shift do they need to make before they would be successful at attracting money instead of chasing it?
Yeah, I think the number one mindset shift is not focusing on you, right? If as long as we can focus on the person we're talking to and come to the perspective that we're just there to serve them. And if we can identify a need that our business meets, then it really doesn't matter what words we use, or um, we're just helping them naturally and there to serve them. And
Chad,
that that takes the pressure off.
I'm so glad you brought that up. I'm sorry, I just stepped all over you. What'd you just say?
Oh, just that takes the pressure off. It's not about us, it's just about them and how we can help them. Yeah.
Chad, you and I have got so much in common because that's the exact, and you and I know this because we've chatted quite a bit before, but that's exactly where I come from on raising private money. I've never asked anybody for money. I've never pitched a deal. I've never tried to sell anybody on loaning me money. I've never tried to persuade anybody. And we get to be, what do we get to be? We get to be a private money teacher.
There we
We get to
go.
be a private money teacher and expose people to this world that have never been exposed to this world of private money and private lending. I've got 47 private lenders, and not one of them had ever heard about private money, private lending. None of them had ever heard about self-directed IRAs and how they can use existing retirement accounts. And so I just get so inspired and excited to talk with people that don't know anything about this world. As you and I have talked about, there's three categories where people can find private lenders: your own warm mortgage, your own connections. Of course, if you want to scale your business, we're going to run out of those connections sooner or later. So, how do you grow your network? How do you grow your connections? And then there's existing private lenders, people that are already loaning money out. Well, you know what? When I'm talking to an existing private lender that's already done it, I don't get to be a teacher. I'm now having a negotiation conversation, and I don't like negotiation conversations. I want to be my own underwriter. I want to set the terms. I don't want to ask for a mortgage. I want to offer the opportunity, just like you said. So, I mean, I couldn't agree with you more, Chad, when you said the number one mindset shift is we're not asking, begging, selling, or persuading. We're serving. As you said, we're leading with a servant's heart. We're exposing people to this world and this opportunity. And you know what I learned, Chad, at the onset when I started raising private money way back in 2009 is when I first started raising it. You know what I learned was the private lenders need us, if not more, than we need them. And I didn't have that straight in my mind. Uh, I thought it was I needed them more than they needed me. Has that been
Yeah.
your experience?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I started with the idea that I desperately needed them because I couldn't raise money from a bank or wouldn't be fundable from a bank with no job and no income. But over time, right, I learned that in actuality, they are desiring an investment that perfectly fits exactly what I offer, right? Exactly what we as real estate investors offer. And so we can give them a better return than they can get elsewhere without risking their money in the stock market while we pay lower rates than we would somewhere else. And yeah, it was eye opening once I came to that realization, and I wish it didn't take me as long as I did. So I'm sure you were much quicker to come to that realization than I was. But yes,
Well, I tell
they
you,
need us.
when my wife Carol Joy and I started noticing this realization that the private lenders actually need us as badly or want us as badly as we want them. And that is, we started getting handwritten thank you notes from our private lenders for being a part of changing and transforming. Well, we got most of these notes from retired people that didn't want to touch their investment capital that they'd had in a CD or in the stock market. They just wanted to get higher rates of return safely and securely. And when we started getting handwritten notes from these people, we're going, wow. I mean, talk about this being a win, win, win scenario. I mean, have you had any of your private lenders say anything like that to you?
Yeah, I've had quite a few of those conversations, and each time, when a couple of times when I went to pay off a lender, which early on when I was starting, I thought when I paid off a lender, that was a good thing and they would be happy, right? And I was surprised over and over where they would, well, is there another investment? I like the return, right? They just want their money working. They don't really want paid off. They loved the opportunity they were in. And I can think of another lender that I was restructuring some loans and asked any lenders if they wanted paid off, and she did. And I met with her, and she was just so excited how grateful she was for the opportunity, how beneficial it was to her. And it's just a great reminder. As investors, we tend to look at the numbers and what's the return and things like that. And really, the our business has a much bigger impact. And they're our lenders, our lenders who work with us are grateful for much more than the numbers, right? The benefits they receive are much bigger than that return on paper.
I'm thinking of a particular private lender that we had for years. Unfortunately, they passed away now, but they were one of our very first private lenders, husband and wife. We went to church with them. And I remember them telling us that we had been a part of changing their retirement years, specifically by allowing them to travel as often as they wanted to, not worrying about having the income or the money to do it, to go visit their grandchildren. Now, let's stop and think about that. Talk about an impact, talk about making a difference. I mean, how could you put a value on being part of changing a elderly couple's retirement years to where they could go visit their grandchildren in person as often as they wanted to because of the interest that we were paying them from the private lender loans. I mean, talk about making a difference. I mean, that kind of story doesn't even, get any better than that. Now, Chad, let
Yeah.
me ask you this. Take us back to maybe not your first, maybe your first, but one of your first private money deals. What type of terms? what kind of structure, what kind of timeline, what kind of payback, what all did that look like that you offered your private lender?
Yeah, early on, I was learning everything the hard way and structuring
Tell me
deals.
about it, brother. Tell me about it.
Yeah, we've all been there, right? So I was thinking that I needed to pay a high rate of return for people to lend me money, and I thought that my lenders wanted paid back very quickly. So I was doing 10% interest, and I was doing very short amortizations so that all of the cash flow from the property was paying down the loan. And over those first few years, I realized that both of those were actually the wrong way to do it. And I was meeting with a lender at one point, and I was trying to incentivize him. I was offering two deals, and one was at 10%, one was at 8%. I'll never forget the conversation. A very astute investor. And when I presented both deals, he said, 10% sounds risky. Let's do 8%. And I realized in that conversation that the return that I offer for an investor who's primarily in stocks, that return is a measurement of the risk in the deal. And if I lower the rate of return that I offer, I will actually incentivize them to invest more or lend me more money. Yeah,
Now,
which was very contrary.
is that not like the opposite from what you would think as a borrower, right?
Right.
You
Yeah.
know?
Completely opposite.
Well, and what that does, what that does, Chad, is it it gets rid of, in fact, well, it doesn't totally get rid of it, but it mitigates that thinking of a new private lender that's never done this kind of thing. Oh, this must be too good to be true, right? So
Right.
I've been paying my private lenders 8% since day one. Day one, ever since 2009, even with the ups and downs in the market all these years, from 2000 now to now here in 2025, I've been paying them 8% the whole time, which is a side note. I've had the question, and you probably have too, Chad. I've had the question, wait a minute, Jay, and this is from other real estate investors. How in the world are you able to keep paying 8% all through this time when interest rates have like skyrocketed and gone up out of sight? How are you still paying your private lenders 8%? You know what my answer is, Chad? I got two answers. My first answer is because I make the rules and they don't. You know, I make the rules. I'm offering an opportunity. I'm not asking anybody for the,
Nice.
and secondly, even when the interest rates have gone high, well, a year ago, year and a half ago, you could have gotten a 7-month CD at the local bank here in Morehead City for 5%. Today, it's less than 3% and still coming down. But 8% still a whole lot better than 5%. But I love that point that you just made, Chad, is you don't have to be paying these people 12% and 14% and 15% because you see, that kind of thinking, real estate investors get programmed from hard money lenders. And that's a huge
Right.
mindset difference right there. I talk to a lot of real estate investors that are confused between what is hard money and what is private money. And I know why they're confused because you got a lot of hard money lenders that call themselves private money lenders, right? When in
Very
fact
true.
they aren't. So just to make sure our audience is understanding, Chad, just lay it out black and white. What's the difference between a hard money lender and a private lender?
Yeah, for me, the difference between a hard money lender and a private lender is who dictates the terms of the loan and who provides the documents. So, if I talk to somebody who, even if they claim they're a private lender, and when we're discussing the deal, they say, well, I only lend at 12% and 3 points, and these are the documents we use, then I know they are a hard money lender or a professional lender. Generally, if I'm talking to a private lender, this is a new opportunity, like you talked about, Jay, where I'm explaining to them how it works and what the benefits to them are, how it's a really easy way for them to diversify their investments. And then with that opportunity, these are the terms of the loan that we offer. These are the documents we use. And in my mind, that's the distinction. So whether I'm presenting the opportunity or whether they're dictating the terms of any loan.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, when I think of a hard money lender, and by the way, I'm not poo-pooing hard money. Some of my best friends in the world are hard money lenders. And if the math makes sense, don't pass up on the deal if you don't have private money raised. But when you do it the Chad way and the J way, it's not going to take you long because there's actually more private money available than there are deals. But
For sure.
yeah, most of the time I think of a hard money lender, I'm thinking of a broker. I'm thinking of institutional money. I'm thinking of the hard money lender has gone out and they've raised investor money to invest in their hard money lending fund. And then the hard money lender turns around as a broker, charges origination fees. That's how they make their money, charge a higher interest rate than they're paying back on their fund. But this world of private money, we're just doing business with ordinary people. And at my live events, Chad, and I know you have your events, and I have private lenders actually come to our own personal private lenders come to our event to network with our attendees. And the big takeaway from my attendees at our live events, we talk about it the next day after the private lenders have left. I'll say, hey, what's your big takeaway from those private lenders? And invariably, my live event attendees, they say, these are ordinary people, just like us. These are not like highfalutin, high class people, private lenders. These are just everyday walk of life people, school teachers, civil service workers, law enforcement people. And Chad, would you say your private lenders are just like pretty much ordinary people?
100%. Yeah. Yeah. They don't drive cars any fancier than anybody else. And uh, yeah, just ordinary people who are looking for a good return on their money. That's it.
Now,
Yeah.
speaking of these ordinary people, when you're talking with someone in your network, maybe you're at church, maybe you're having coffee, maybe you're at a social event or whatever, and you want to bring up the topic of private money, private lending, et cetera, what are some of your favorite ways to start conversations?
Yeah. My favorite way is I always want them to initiate, right? I want them to ask what that means to be a private lender or how that process works. I don't want to be the one pushing it. And so I will share what I do. Inevitably, in the conversation, something comes up about what you do. If you know somebody, you would share it in kind of just what's been going on in the week. And so I always just briefly share that I like to renovate properties. We buy ugly houses, we fix them up, we rent them to great families, and then we share the profits with friends, family, people we know instead of the bank. And just that statement provides a window for them, anybody who might be interested in how do I get into real estate? How do I share in the profits of this real estate deal? Right? Everybody wishes they could do that. And that just opens the window or that gives them the opportunity to ask the question, how does that work? What does that mean? How do I qualify to be a private lender? And once that discussion starts, then I can present the opportunity, explain how the business works, learn more about them, exactly what they want, and how our business can meet that need.
Chad, I love your approach to that, to where, again, you are an example of no chasing and begging and selling and persuading. You're attracting the money by them asking you, well, what do you do? What have you got going on in your world? And that's beautiful. I love what you just said. You just said, well, we invest in properties, we buy some ugly houses, we fix them up, and we share in the profits with our investors or our private lenders. And you just stopped the statement right there because when you said that, how could someone not be curious about how that works, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Who
what you
doesn't want to share in the profits of a real estate deal, right?
Hey, look, that phrase right there. Hey, listen, folks. You're listening to this show. That right there is a writer downer. That phrase. I mean, that's the big takeaway from this show right here. Is Chad sharing how he even opens up or begins the conversation of private money and private lending by using that phrase, and I share in the profits. Do you call when you're saying that? Do you call them investors or do you call them private lenders when you're talking to somebody about what you do?
Generally, I'll say investors,
Because
but
people know
usually,
what an investor is.
yeah, an investor is a lender who doesn't have an
Exactly.
equity stake. They get a return on their money. Yeah.
I got you.
I'll use the phrase just like the bank, right?
Just like that, we
Just
sharing
like
the
the bank.
profits. Is that what you say? We sharing the profits just like the bank?
Yeah. Yeah. Our lenders are just like the bank. They get a
Oh yeah,
return on their money. They get their payment every month, no matter what happens to the property. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Chad, if someone listening here to the show is starting from scratch today, what's the first action step you tell them to take this week to get in the game?
To get in the game, number one action step is internally commit to doing it. Commit to being a success in real estate, whatever that means to you. And if you are committed to it, I guarantee you can figure out how to overcome any obstacle. And then I would just start talking to people, as simple as it is. Tell people, share with them what you're looking to do, give them the opportunity to hear how they could be a lender in your business, and just start having those conversations. If you're there to serve other people, take an interest in them, you'll very quickly realize that they are desiring exactly what we can offer with our real estate deals. And I think you'll be amazed at just how easy it is to raise private money once you start that process.
Chad, I love your spirit. I love your heart. I love your values. I love your love for God and your fellow church family and all that. So, we actually have two sets of listeners here to Raising Private Money. We have people that want to be an investor, they want to invest in your deals, in the Chad Harris deals. And we have other people that are real estate investors that want to learn more about how to raise private money. So, what's the best way that people can reach out to you?
Yeah, definitely. If you want to find out more information about me, learn more, you can go to my website, truewealthinvestors.com. And there's links on there where you can find more information, other teaching and presentations I've done. You can also schedule a time to chat if you want to call. Want to talk to me? There's a link there where you can book it on the calendar. And I'd look forward to talking to anybody.
Thank you so much for sharing, Chad. That's www.true, True, truewealthinvestors.com. www.truewealthinvestors.com. For all you listeners reaching out to Chad, I highly recommend you do it because he is the salt of the earth. Chad, thank you so much for joining me, and God bless you.
Thank you, Jay.
Thank you. And there you have it, another episode of Raising Private Money. You're one step away, you're one conversation away from you making an impact in other people's lives. So if this episode resonated with you and you found it very valuable, then please just share this episode with one other person. Share this episode with one other person that you believe it will make a difference in their lives. And we also appreciate you subscribing and liking, leaving us a review. If you happen to be watching on YouTube, be sure and click that bell so you don't miss out on the upcoming amazing episode of Raising Private Money. I'm Jay Conner, the Private Money Authority. Looking forward to seeing you right here on the next episode of Raising Private Money.
Are you feeling inspired by the knowledge you gained in this episode? Then head over to jconner.com/money guide. That's JCONNER.com/money guide and download your free guide that shares 7 reasons why private money will skyrocket your real estate investing business right now. Again, that's jconner.com/money guide to get your free guide. We'll see you next time on Raising Private Money with Jay Conner.